Whoops, this black raspberry does not belong here. It should be growing over there, but you can see it has this long cane and it has landed on the ground and put in roots. So we have an extra bonus raspberry plant. We have quite a few because we planted these black raspberries in the spring, planning to put in a trellis. We got a little sidetracked by Hurricane Helene and we are back on track. This weekend we are building a trellis that works for caning plants. Raspberries, blackberries, black raspberries, which are a fantastic native plant for your yard if you live in the eastern United States. We'd love for you to come along with us. We'll show you the way that we do it. I'm Amy Landers with gardensthatmatter.com, where we believe your garden is the key to better food, a better life, and a better planet. Let's build a raspberry trellis. We are building a T-Trellis today. I'll tell you more about why we picked this style, but first I want to mention two other popular trellis styles that you could use for caneberries. The I-trellis, this is the simplest. Sometimes it's called the hedgerow. It has upright poles and you tie the canes to a single wire. Then there's the V-trellis, which uses pairs of angled poles and wires on either side, and the canes have room to spread out, so you tend to have less disease and more fruit. The right style depends on your space, your budget, and your materials. We're going with the T-trellis, using these upright posts with two cross arms like a capital T. I guess it's actually a double T, kind of like the logo for Colby's alma mater, Texas Tech. My dad, aka Grandpa, has been using this style for decades with raspberries and blackberries and even grapes. He originally used locust posts, and some of those are still standing after more than 30 years. Since locust is harder to find these days, we're using pressure-treated 4x4s. Before we start building, there are 3 steps to get you prepared. Step 1, choose the right location. In the wild, raspberries and blackberries tend to grow along the edges of forests, so they can take a little shade. But if they get more sun, you get more berries, and that's really what we're after. Aim for at least 6 hours of sunlight a day. Berries also thrive in fertile, well-draining soil, no soggy feet, no waterlogged soil, but it is helpful to have easy access to water in case you get a dry spell when the fruit's developing and you want to irrigate. Finally, you need enough space. Wild brambles do grow in thickets, but when the plants are crowded together, they produce fewer berries and fungal disease can become a problem. So you want room for good airflow and, most importantly, access to pick berries from both sides. We'll talk a little more about spacing in our next step. Step 2, plan your layout. This helps you figure out how many posts and plants you'll need. Start with your constraints. What area do you have to work with? What kind of berries do you want to grow? What's the recommended plant spacing for that variety? We are fortunate to be working in an area that's about 50 feet by 10 feet. We are going to grow black raspberries. The scientific name for these is Rubus occidentalis, and those have a recommended spacing of about 3 feet apart. And that's actually how they're planted behind me. With your own details in mind, you can make a plan. So you could do this in the garden using a tape measure and placeholders like flags or stakes. Remember, we're out of order and you really want to do this before you put in the plants. Or you can make a simple sketch. If you're not sure what variety you want yet, just allow 3 or 4 feet of space between plants. A trellis can be as long as you'd like, and posts can be set anywhere from 10 to 25 feet apart. With that longer span, the wire tends to sag in the middle unless you keep it really tight. So we spaced ours closer, 11 feet between poles. We left 3 feet on either end. That's space for the tension wires, which I'm going to tell you in an upcoming step. You can also run 2 trellises side by side. In that case, allow 6 to 8 feet between them for your walkway and good airflow. Now you can count how many posts, cross arms, and plants you need, and you can calculate the length of the wire. You can get a copy of this worksheet on our blog. We'll include a link in the video below. Laying everything out ahead of time makes alignment and spacing so much easier when you're ready to dig. Step 3, gather supplies and tools. Here's what we're using for our 50-foot trellis. For materials, we have 5 4x4 by 8-foot ground contact pressure-treated posts. We need 5 30-inch 2x4s for the top cross arms, 5 24-inch 2x4s for the bottom cross arms, and those can all be cut out of 3 8-foot boards. A 1-pound box of number 10 3.5-inch T25 tan exterior wood screws. Be sure a T25 bit is included in your box. A 1-pound box of 1.25-inch 9-gauge galvanized fence staples. 2 1x12 rebar stakes,
6 2-inch eye hooks. These are optional, as I'll share later. And then 250-ish or more feet of 12 gauge galvanized wire. We actually used 10 gauge because it's what we had on hand, although it was a pain to untangle this. For tools, you're going to need masonry string and wooden stakes, a tape measure and pencil, a saw to cut your cross arms, post hole diggers or a gas-powered auger with an 8-inch blade, a post level, and a tamping stick. We used a broom handle for this, a cordless drill and 7/64 drill bit to make your pilot holes so that the wood doesn't split, a quick clamp. This one is also optional. We'll show you what to do if you don't have one later. A screwdriver for twisting in your eye hooks, a sledgehammer to hammer in the rebar, and a hammer for staples, fence pliers, and gloves. So once you have all those things in place, you're ready for step 4, mark and measure. If you haven't already, use strings and stakes to make a straight row. Mark each pole's location with a stake. And remember, measure twice, dig once. Step 5, get out your post hole diggers. You're gonna dig holes 2 to 3 feet deep and 8 inches across.
It was so gorgeous.
We are going down 30 inches because that gets us below the frost line and deep enough for a stable post. If you are digging more than 3 posts, it might be worth it to rent or borrow an auger. Maybe even get your neighbors together and have a hole digging day. If you have sandy soil, you may want to set your posts in concrete. In that case, you really want an auger because those holes need to be 3 times as wide as your posts. So that's almost a foot. You can get an auger with a 12-inch blade. But here in our clay soil, we only need a 6 to 8-inch hole. You see how I'm rocking those diggers back and forth? That's the clay. It is sticky. As you can see, the auger makes quick work of digging holes. And now we are on to step 6, set the posts. Colby likes to set the 2 end posts first and then run string between them to help with lining up the rest of the posts. When you place each 4x4 into its hole, make sure it's squared up with the others and on the same side of the string. Then you're going to backfill a little at a time, put some soil in, tamp it down, put some soil in, tamp it down. You're tamping firmly each time to compact the soil around the posts. Your foot and a broomstick are the only tools that you need for this job. Take your time backfilling and tamping so that your posts are firmly set. Along the way, use a vertical level to keep the posts plumb. That means straight up and down. Repeat for each post. Step 7, attach the cross arms. Measure from the ground up to 3 feet and 5 feet on each post. Center that 30-inch crossbar up at the top. Make sure it's level and clamp. Pre-drill your holes and then attach with 4 screws, 2 on each side. Repeat this with your 24-inch crossbar on the bottom. If you don't have a clamp, this is what you do. Attach the crossarm with 1 screw, then level it and screw in the other 3. Step 8, install the eye hooks. You're gonna have 3 on each end post. Drill your pilot holes about 1 inch in from the ends of the crossarms on the top surface, and then at that same height, drill 1 more pilot hole on the outside of the end post. Twist in the eye hooks. A long screwdriver comes in really handy here for the leverage. Now a note on this step, the eye hooks are not a necessity. You can definitely attach the wire directly to the end post crossarms using fence staples instead. We chose to use the eye hooks because they make it a little easier to adjust the wire tension later on if needed. Step 9, set the tension stakes. If you are setting your poles in concrete, you can skip this step. Otherwise, you're gonna drive that rebar at a 45-degree angle into the ground, about 3/4 of the way, and then run your wires from the eye hooks down to the stake. And after you've attached each wire, you're gonna finish driving it in. This pulls it tight and locks the wire into place. We usually leave about 1 inch above ground in case we need to pull the stake out later on. This is gonna brace the structure and prevent the trellis from pulling inward. An alternative to tension wires is a 45-degree angle brace on the inside of the end post. Just anchor that lower end of the stake to keep it from sliding. Step 10, we're gonna string the wire. Thread the galvanized wire through the eye hook on one side of the row. Wrap it several times around itself to secure. Next, stretch the wire to the next crossarm and staple it about 1 inch from the end. We use fence pliers to get tension on the wire before we hammer in the fence staple. A pro tip from Colby, drill pilot holes for your fence staples. This is going to make installation easier and prevent the wood from splitting. Work your way down the row, attaching the wire to each crossarm. At the end of the row, pull the wire tight with fence pliers and wrap it securely around that final Ihook. Repeat this process for the other side of the top crossarms, then move to the lower crossarms. Down here, we're going to attach the wires to the end with a pair of staples, no Ihooks. Well, here we are, step 11. Now your trellis is up. It's time for the fun part, planting your berries, or in our case, draining and pruning the existing canes. We recruited the boys to help us. They carefully moved the canes up into the trellis. Some of them we had to tie on just to secure them. Some we pruned off. But as you can see, they're looking a lot happier off the ground and they'll be much easier to pick. Our next step is to dig up those tip-rooted plants that I showed you at the beginning and transplant them into the row. Since this video is about building the trellis, I'm not going to dive into planting raspberries here, but I do have some tips for you along with a printable version of this tutorial over on our blog at gardensthatmatter.com. I'll include the link below. Thanks again for watching, and until I see you again, happy gardening!
Oh, does the gnome get to be out here?